Here at the Systems Education Experience, we're working to try and answer the question, can we bioengineer a more sustainable world? First, we should define bioengineering. It's like there was a big collision of biology, chemistry, physics, engineering, and math. And after the collision and all the dust has settled, we're left with this big, beautiful systems-based pursuit of bioengineering that's really a combination of many different topics. The main goal of bioengineering is to use a multidisciplinary approach to improve life, not just for people, but for living organisms in general. This systems thinking and strategizing makes a more united front against complex problems. We should also define sustainability. At its most basic definition, it means what goes in must be produced in equal amounts to maintain. For example, if you eat 100 apples a year, you should grow enough apples to sustain the amount you expect to eat the following year. Obviously, sustainability on a global scale is a lot more complex. For example, humans are producing a lot more carbon dioxide than photosynthesizers can take in. So the question is, how can we get this to a more sustainable level? Right now, we have a lot of current practices that do not encourage sustainability. For example, did you ever wonder where your delicious tropical fruit, like this pineapple, may have come from? It was probably flown to your neighborhood grocery store in a plane, which means it costs a lot of jet fuel and carbon dioxide output, which isn't very sustainable. The good news is, bioengineers are working to find ways of creating more sustainable products. Green algae is a commonly used organism to create products from biofuels, for example, like this surfboard. Oil extracted from algae can be used to make plastics, and algae can also help treat wastewater through a process known as bioremediation. These are just a few examples of some of the sustainable products made with algae. Other examples include fuels used for cars or planes, and even flip-flops made from algae plastics, and also feed for animals. So it'd be nice to compare what we can make with petroleum oil versus algae oil. Here we see a few examples of what we can make with petroleum oil. This costs about $60 a barrel. Now we can see a few examples of what we can make with algae oil, and you'll notice that there's quite a bit of overlap. The one downside here with algae oil is that we're not really sure what it would cost, and we're still working on that number. So in general, what algae do is they take in sunlight, CO2, water, and some fertilizers, and they're made of carbs, proteins, and oils, and each of these macromolecules is responsible for some of the awesome products that algae can make. These products are often sustainable and lead us towards a more hopeful future. So, when it comes to protecting the world from things like rising carbon dioxide levels, we have a couple of different micro-avengers. We have diatoms, which also photosynthesize and can grow in salt water. We have, of course, algae that we already spoke about. And we have cyanobacteria. All of these microbes can help us in our combat against climate change. If we could use algae in all these different ways to do everything from making plastics to having another source of fuel, the question is, what else could we bioengineer with algae? There's a lot of overlap between what we can do with algae and what we can do with petroleum. And while economic constraints have prevented algae oil from being prominently used, it is certainly worthwhile for people like you to start brainstorming other ways that we could use energy sources like algae and other photosynthesizers to make more sustainable products.